Ken Block was born on November 21st, 1967 in Long Beach, California. Even at an early age, Ken was an adventurous and competitive spirit who loved participating in sports. Ken experimented with a plethora of different sports in his youth, spending most of his free time riding BMX bikes and skateboards, along with participating in various organized team sports as well. However, Ken found himself most drawn to skateboarding and would often hang out at local skate parks, honing his skills. Ken's father was the owner of a business in the circuit board printing industry that had left the family fairly well off, and so, as Ken matured into his teenage years, his parents decided that they wanted to purchase an avocado grove, and so they did just that, and purchased a small avocado grove in Escondido, California, and subsequently relocated their family to the newly purchased property. This move to Escondido would prove to have a profound impact on Ken's life, as the punk rock loving teenage Ken would entrench himself within the local skateboarding scene in his high school years, where he frequently crossed paths and connected with numerous professional skateboarders and surfers that inhabited the area. In his teenage years, Ken also began to foster a passion for snowboarding and graduated from riding BMX bikes to riding motocross bikes as well. After finishing high school, Ken, who by this time had a good understanding of the extreme sports industry, moved to Breckenridge, Colorado to pursue his dream of becoming a professional snowboarder. However, after spending a couple of years honing his snowboarding skills with his professional friends in Colorado, Ken came to the realization that despite him putting forth his best efforts, his snowboarding skills were just not up to snuff when compared to his professional buddies, and so he decided to pivot his vision and his efforts towards another one of his passions, clothing design, and subsequently moved back to California, where he attended Palomar Community College to study computer graphic design, which was a skill in high demand in the extreme sports media and merchandise industries. While attending Palomar Community College, Ken met a man named Damon Way, who was the brother of the professional skateboarder Danny Way, and Ken and Damon quickly formed a close friendship. Ken and Damon's friendship would eventually blossom into a business partnership as well, when in 1994, the duo founded an apparel company together in Carlsbad, California, which they named DC. By this point, Ken had tried his hand at clothing design with a few small clothing companies and lines he had founded in the early 1990s, seeing modest success, with this success partially spurred on by the promotion of one of his brands by Danny Way. And thus, a partnership between Damon and Ken naturally seemed like a perfect fit, as they were both skilled designers who were both entrenched within skate culture, and they had a natural and proven effective method of product promotion by way of Danny Way. After DC launched its first lines of products in June of 1994, it was apparent that Ken and Damon had created something truly special, as DC began to see immediate and explosive success, and by December of 1994 had upgraded their operations to a 16,000-foot facility, and by the end of 1995, DC was bringing in $7 million in revenue. By the end of 1996, the company's revenue had increased threefold, totaling at $21 million for the year. Throughout the rest of the 1990s and into the early 2000s, Ken focused on growing the brand, until 2004, when he sold his ownership in DC after the brand was acquired for $87 million by the surfwear company Quiksilver. Following the DC buyout, Ken was now a very wealthy man, and so, at age 37, he decided to once again pivot his life's focus to another one of his passions, rally racing, a passion inspired from the images he saw as a child in the 80s of the incredibly fast and dangerous Group B cars in magazines, which, if you'd like to know more about the legendary Group B, I suggest you check out my video about the crash that ended the Group B era, which I'll link on screen here. However, Ken's interest in rally had truly been reignited in his adulthood by motocross legend, and at the time, one of the newest upcoming stars in rally racing, Travis Pastrana, who made him realize that rally racing wasn't just a European sport, as he would later recount of his thoughts of rally at the time, stating, quote, "I thought, rally, that's a European thing. I'll never be able to get to do that." And it wasn't until Travis Pastrana did some rallies in the States in 2004 that I realized there was even a rally championship in America. I had no exposure to that fact whatsoever before that. So that's when I finally said, wow, I can actually maybe go do this somewhere here. I don't need to go to Europe to try and figure this out, he recalled. Ken began his rookie season of rally racing in 2005, driving a 2005 Subaru WRX STI for the Vermont Sports Car Team. He had an excellent debut season in the Rally America Championship, where he placed 4th overall for the season and 3rd in the Group A class. This outstanding first season performance would go on to earn him the championship's Rookie of the Year award for 2005. The following year, in 2006, he and fellow DC teammate Travis Pastrana inked a formal deal with Subaru, and their team became formally known as the Subaru Rally Team USA. Ken would go on to have another solid year of performances in 2006, including his participation in the first ever X Games Rallycross event, in which he placed 3rd, earning himself a bronze medal for his efforts. In 2007, he one-upped his previous year's performance at the X Games, this time taking 2nd place for the silver medal. Notably, 2007 was also the year that Ken would make his World Rally Championship, or WRC for short, debut, where he would impressively finish within the top 5 on 2 stages whilst racing in the N class at the Rally New Zealand event. The following year in 2008, Ken would focus his efforts almost exclusively on participating in WRC points qualifying races, winning the Canadian Rally Championships, and then following that victory up with another win at Rally New York later that year as well. At the 2008 X Games, Ken would tie for 3rd after he and the late Dave Mira both damaged their vehicles and were unable to finish to break the tie. Despite his solid career thus far in the various competitive rally disciplines, it was the next year, in 2009 however, that Ken would truly ascend to mainstream celebrity status following the release of a promotional video for DC Shoes on YouTube, Gymkhana 2. Gymkhana 2 featured Ken driving his Subaru and drifting, often at high speeds and through tight squeezes, around various objects. The video was a showcase of his incredible driving, and more specifically, his drifting skills, and was a hit with people online, going viral and introducing millions of people to his name, and many of them to rally as a whole. Gymkhana 2, as of the making of this video, has garnered over 50 million views on YouTube. Naturally, Ken would follow up Gymkhana 2 with Gymkhana 3 in 2010, which featured similar impressive maneuvers, but this time, he was driving a Ford Fiesta after he had severed ties with Subaru and subsequently signed a deal with Ford earlier that year. Gymkhana 3 saw similar success to its predecessor, which only further cemented his rapidly rising status as a motorsport icon. Ken would go on to release subsequent entries to the Gymkhana series in 2011 and 2012 as well, with the latter garnering over 5 million views in its first week on YouTube. From this point forward, springboarding off the momentum he had generated from his Gymkhana videos, Ken began to focus his efforts into his YouTube channel and social media in general, and also into his racing apparel brand, and his newfound proclivity for content creation would only continue to grow his audience online. Ken's Hoonigan YouTube channel continued to grow rapidly, thanks largely in part to Ken's likable, carefree, and fun-loving attitude, with his content reflecting his personality. His videos were vlog style, following Ken as he goofed around with various vehicles with friends and colleagues, and chronicled him as he gallivanted around the world on the rally circuit. His fun and regular content gave him an outlet to express his creativity as well, and experiment with building and driving less practical but simply awesome vehicles as well, and the Hoonigan YouTube channel has grown to over 5 million subscribers as of the making of this video. I'll leave a link to the channel in the description if you'd like to check out Ken's content for yourself. On January 2nd, 2023, Ken, along with a group of family and friends, embarked on a snowmobiling excursion in Woodland, Utah, which is located not far from his home there. Utah had been blanketed with heavy snowfall for the entirety of the month of December, and Ken had sought to take full advantage of the heavy snowfall for himself. Ken had spent the previous few days snowmobiling as well, posting a photo of his snowmobile collection buried in the snow, as well as a short video of him riding one to his Facebook page on December 29th and December 30th, respectively. The morning of the 2nd, he had also posted on his Facebook page to promote an upcoming YouTube video that featured his 16-year-old daughter, Leah, finishing her rebuild of her classic 1985 Audi Quattro. Ken and his group of friends and family set out on their snowmobiling excursion in the early afternoon, and by just before 2 p.m., the group had all fanned out and had gone their separate ways. Ken, who was located around the Mill Hollow area, began to ascend a steep slope covered with deep snow with his ski-doo. However, while in the process of ascending the steep hill, his ski-doo upended and landed atop him. Since he was alone at the time of the upending, it was several minutes before anyone had realized what had befallen Ken, and at approximately 2 p.m., the group called 911 to report the accident. Unfortunately, by the time that Wasatch County and U.S. Forest Service officials arrived on scene, Ken had died as a result of his injuries after being crushed by the ski-doo, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. In the aftermath of the incident, an investigation into the circumstances of Ken's death was conducted by officials that had responded to the scene. The investigation noted that the deep, powder snow in the area likely played a major role in the upending of the ski-doo, with one Wasatch County official stating, quote, "The deep powder can play a factor. With machines these days, they're very powerful, and deep powder like that, it's very possible to overturn a sled or have one upend, as it did in this situation," the official said. Furthermore, investigators found no indications of high marking, a snowmobiling term for riding up a steep slope but turning around before reaching the apex to avoid getting stuck or flipping the snowmobile, which suggested that Ken had perhaps not been aware of the risk of his ski-doo flipping until it had already upturned onto him. The announcement of Ken's sudden passing shocked the extreme sports world and his numerous fans, and a huge outpouring of support for his family and friends followed online. His legacy will be forever cemented by his brand DC and by his YouTube channel, which has resumed posting content, sans Ken of course, and has continued to see success in his absence. His legacy will also live on within the WRC and the United States Auto Club, who retired his number 43 following his tragic death. Furthermore, the previously scheduled January 3rd YouTube upload featuring his daughter Leah was put on ice indefinitely as she grappled with her inner conflicts about continuing her budding racing career without her father at her side. However, in March of 2023, Leah announced her return to rally in an Instagram post that showcased her car's livery for the season, which was a tribute to her father Ken, as it mirrored the livery he used during his debut season in 2005. Following the announcement of her return, one race organizer remarked, quote, "It's going to be fascinating to see how Leah's obvious and natural pace translates," they said. Notably, her co-driver for the 2023 season is also the wife of Ken's longtime co-driver, and recently was a co-driver for Travis Pastrana as well. and it is no doubt that the greatest mark of Ken's legacy is Leah, as she has followed in her father's footsteps, and his jovial, fun-loving attitude has clearly been passed along to her as well. Ken Block lived an incredibly successful, fulfilling, and exciting life, and although it was tragically cut short far too soon, his friends, family, and fans alike can take solace in the knowledge that his life was, undoubtedly, a life well lived. Thank you all for watching.